Hi everyone, it's your lovely Lotus Blossom Lizzie, and today I'm going to show you how to make an easy junk journal cover. This is going to be a series, so I'm going to do some things in parts because I didn't want the video to be too long. But before we get started, if these are the type of videos that you enjoy and you like, please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber already, because more junk journaling videos will be coming out along with the mixed media as well. So I took this book apart, so I'm going to show you how I did this. This is a repurposing type of a junk journal, and it's actually going to have tons of pages, and I'm doing this just for myself. Actually, there are other junk journals up in my Etsy shop over at pleasantcreations.com, and the link will be below if you're interested. And I also have journaling supplies there as well. I'm going to be doing some videos as well on doing ephemera for the junk journals coming up, so you want to make sure that you're subscribed for that. So again, this is the book that I'm making. This is the outside cover, and I'm going to show you how to make this in a moment, but I just wanted to show you. And it's just the cover itself because I thought the cover was very beautiful and I really didn't want to cover it up too much. I may go back and put some embellishments in, and you'll see that as we go along and we work in this journal. And I put some fabric on the outside, and again, you'll see how I did that as well. And I have not assembled anything in the book yet because I want you to see how it's done. And then this is going to be the inside cover, which is actually made from a sheet, and I made it into some book paper, and I'll probably be modifying this as well. So I didn't want to glue this in yet for this part of the series. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in and get started. So the first thing that we're going to do, of course, is to select the book that you would like. And I have tons of books around here, so you'll see more books coming up in the shop soon. But I got this from Habitat for Humanity, and I don't like paying a lot for my books, and I was able to get a whole bag of books for like $2. So this is one of the books that came in there, and it has some really nice illustrations as well. So I just ran my X-Acto knife along the spine, and this one was relatively easy to cut out. Now, not all books are easy to cut out, but you just need to take your time and just kind of bust that spine open, so to speak, carefully, and remove the pages from it. And don't throw those pages away, because we're going to be using those as well. Maybe not in this book, but it may go into another book also. So I'm just trying to clean the edges up a little bit, and I am using my Fiskars rotary cutter to kind of cut some of the edges off. And yes, they are very rough, but it's okay because they're going to be covered up, so don't worry about that. You also have to be careful when you are cutting books with your rotary cutter, because although this is a heavy-duty rotary cutter, there are some thicknesses that it will not cut through, and you could mess it up. So just be aware of that. So I took out a piece of a Cheerio box, and I'm going to actually cut my spine. I am making my spine 9.25 inches tall, and it's going to be 2 inches wide. Now, when I was doing this, I don't know why I was thinking 3 in my head. So initially I was cutting my pieces at 3, but it's going to be 2 inches wide. So I'm going to cut 3 pieces out of this Cheerio box that are going to be the 9.25 inches tall and the 2 inches wide. And that is because I'm going to sandwich them together. This cardboard is pretty thin, so I want my spine to be about the thickness of the book cover itself. So to do that, I'm going to need to sandwich some of the pieces so that I can fatten them up, so to speak. So now I have my 3 pieces here, so I can move my rotary cutter out of the way. And I took out my Aleene's tacky glue. Now you can use any glue that you like. You can use regular Elmer's glue. You can use Fabri-Tac. You can use just any kind of glue. I love using the Aleene's because it's really thick. It dries relatively fast as well, and I know that once this is dry, ain't nothing coming up. So I love this glue. And technically a little goes a long way. It's really thick. Now I'm just kind of taking my time and spreading things on, but you don't even need to go through all that. Just slap that glue on there and just sandwich those together. Now I know you also may be wondering, why in the world did I even cut the spine off if I'm putting another spine on? Well, with this book is kind of obvious. We are modifying the spine to accommodate more pages within the book, because as you saw, the spine was quite small. So we want to modify the book so that it can accommodate all the junk goodness that we're going to be putting into this book. So I'm just kind of laying it out just to make sure everything looks okay. And again, it looks kind of rough. That's all right. Most of it is going to be covered up anyway. So here's our fabric, and this is a fabric that I got at a thrift store. It was like a remnant, and I've had it for a long time. I didn't even think too much into it. I just went and I grabbed some fabric out of my room. Now I am going to make this around 4 inches. I'm going to cut it. Now, yes, the spine is 2 inches, but we want to have some overlap as well. So I'm just not really measuring anything. I'm just using my ruler for a straight edge and a regular ink pen, and I'm just using my fabric scissors to cut it. And I love these fabric scissors. They are so magnificent and large and very sharp because I only use them on fabric. So that's why you keep seeing me switching scissors around. So now I'm going to make this 4 inches, and again, you'll see I'm not really measuring anything. And I think that's the beauty of doing a junk journal, is that you can really kind of wing it on things. You can't really mess things up, especially if you're doing a junk journal for yourself. With this one, I'm doing it for myself and nobody else, and so even if it has some imperfections, I'm really okay with that. And so now I have my spine cut out, and the length is a bit longer, but the width is 4 inches long. And yes, you can still see the ink there on my material, but I'll be cutting that off, and you'll see that in a moment as well. Now, I don't throw away your spine. Well, we talked about that a little bit. I put that to the side. I was going to work on it, then I decided not to. So the next thing I took out was some heavy duty Wonder Under. Now you don't really need heavy duty, and what it is, it's an iron-on fusible web. It's an adhesive, and one side of it is slick and the other side has the adhesive on it, so it's a little bit rough. So what I'm doing is kind of cutting this out to fit my material, and I love using this. It makes working with your fabric much easier. You don't need it. I had it, so I used it for my project here, but you definitely don't need it. You can actually glue your book right onto the fabric and it will work very well. But I'm making what's called book paper, and book paper consists of the book fabric, and what it consists of is the fabric and then another layer of paper. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to attach the interface to the material first. So I'm putting that rough side, which is the adhesive side, down on the material, and I'm just taking my iron and I'm just holding it over for a few seconds. You really only need a few seconds. I usually go over it a little bit more, and I have it sandwiched in between some parchment paper so that if any glue leaks out, it's not going to ruin the material or the pad that I have on my desk. So this is just like a portable pad that I'm using to iron things on. So now I'm just going to peel that off, and you want to wait until it cools off. Otherwise, you're going to peel it off of the material, which you'll see in a few moments down the road here in this video I did, and I'll show you how to correct that as well. But in this case, it came off pretty good. We still had a few pieces, a few little small tidbits on the side, so I got those off. And now I'm just putting some easel paper that I have. I got a big huge roll of easel paper. You can get it from Walmart, you can get it from IKEA, but again, use what you have. You can use regular copy paper for this. You can also use cardstock as well. So, but I'm using the easel paper, and you just, again, you lay your iron on the paper and just for a few seconds and it will adhere. So now we have paper. So I want to cut all this extra paper off of the side, so I'll just use my scissors and do this. And since it has paper on it, that's why I'm using the little scissors instead of the fabric scissors. But really, it probably would have been okay if I used the fabric scissors, but I'm like, I baby those things so much, I don't want them to get messed up. So I just went around the sides, and you can see again it's a little bit rough, and we're going to straighten that up as well. And I will say that the shape of it was a little bit wonky, but again, the imperfections don't really bother me that much. So I took out my sewing machine, and I was really proud of myself because I didn't know if I was going to be able to record me sewing on here, but just bear with me here. I'm using a zigzag stitch on the edge, and that's going to help this not to fray, and it gives it a really nice decorative touch as well. And I do a back stitch at the end, but just a little bit, because I don't want the edges to be like too bunched up at the end. And I'll just cut off the extra thread as well. So now I'm just taking out all these pieces that we've been working on. We're going to start assembling them. And I noticed that there's some tape on the book, and at first I was going to leave the tape, and I said, no, I'm going to try to get it off. So this little gadget that I'm using is called a Scotty Pillar, and everybody should have a Scotty Pillar. And I'm going to put some links below for some of the materials and things that I'm using, but the Scotty Pillar, it will get off like tags and things from the store. Is really nice. And then I took a baby wipe and I wiped over the book. I didn't realize how dirty the book was until I looked at it on here. I could actually see the dirt coming off the book. So you want to clean your book up as well. So I always try to wipe off all the dirt before I start assembling things. So now I'm just kind of eyeballing things to see how I want to put this together. Now I know it's hard to see because I really roughly kind of cut the edges of the book cover itself, but you want to leave just a little bit of space in between all of these pieces, and that's going to help your book to be able to close really nicely. So you want to leave just a little bit on each side. You don't want to butt everything up together, and I hope that makes sense. So now I'm using my Aleene's tacky glue again because that's my glue of choice for today. Sometimes I use a different glue, but today I'm using Aleene's tacky glue. And no, this video is not sponsored. I love that glue, and I really need to get some more before I run out. So this time I took out one of my little sponge brushes because I didn't feel like sticking my fingers in there. I already messed my nails up and got glue all over the place. And then I'm just going to glue this down. Now, what would be better is to just put glue on that whole fabric piece at one time. I don't know why I did it this way. I don't know, folks, but we're just going to straighten that up. And then I just went over it. Well, I just used my sponge again, which again is probably not the best tool to use because that glue is like super thick. And I wanted to make sure I got the edges. Whenever you're doing anything with your junk journal covers, you always want to give your edges lots of love. So if you've seen the last videos for how to make a junk journal, you would hear me say that a lot. Give your corners lots of love, and then you don't have to worry about them coming up. And especially if you're using this glue, it's not going to come up at all. So now I got everything all glued up and I can put the book together. And again, I just kind of eyeball it to make sure everything is nice and straight. I think I succeeded. And I will say I probably would have left just a tidbit more space in between the book and the spine itself, but it still worked out okay. Now I'm just cutting out some notches because this is going to, you'll still have the strength of the material to hold the spine together, but you won't have it bunched up, and it will make it really easy for you to close up the book. So for on each side, I made sure that I put the notches there. And you don't have to bring your notches all the way to the end of the book, but very close. You want it to be close. And yes, I did use my scissors and it had glue on it, and I just made sure I cleaned that glue off. I had a little bit of time to work with before the glue actually sets. You don't want to ruin your good scissors. So now basically we have our spine on, and I turned it over, but I did realize that once I gave it a bend, it was coming up a little bit, so I want to give it some extra glue on the edges as well. So you could definitely not have to worry about this. You could always go back and you can glue it as well, depending on how you have the cover decorated. But today we're just doing the spine. So the next piece we're going to do is we are going to do the inside of the cover, so to speak. We're not going to adhere it today, as I said in the beginning, but we're going to prepare it so it'll be ready once we get our signatures going. So what I'm doing here is like just roughly kind of marking out where the book is, and I'm using an old sheet. I specifically bought this sheet for the design that's on here, and I knew that I would be using it for material. Using sheets for material is a great way to save a ton of money and get some fabulously designed fabric. So that's what I'm doing. And as you can see, I didn't measure anything. So that makes everything super easy when you don't have to measure stuff. Now I'm just putting my book back on just to make sure that I didn't overcut it. So it will fit on here. So now I am pulling out the Wonder Under again and the interface adhesive. And I'm just making sure that I have enough to cover the material that I have here. And again, I'm just kind of roughly cutting things out, not having a big hoop-de-doo about it. And then I took out my ironing pad and my parchment paper. I think I mentioned that was parchment paper that have everything sandwiched in between. And you also want to make sure that you're putting the interface on the wrong side of your fabric. Because this fabric is really light, and it was almost hard to tell which side was the wrong side. Now, instead of using the interfaces again, you can use whatever material that not the interface, I'm sorry. Instead of using the paper, you can use whatever type of material that you would like on the back side, and to include cardstock. Now, although I went over this whole piece with my iron, I found that once I tried to take this up, I was actually pulling up some of the interface. And if that happens, that means that you didn't leave your iron down long enough, or maybe it wasn't hot enough. And you always want to use a hot iron without the steam on it. And so I began to pull it up, and I did notice that some of it was coming up, and I just put that back down and then put the iron back over it, and it only took a few seconds, and adhered very nicely. And voila. So now I'm going to put on the paper on the back. And I'm just cutting off some of the extra paper here just to work with it. Again, it's not a necessary step. And then I put this parchment paper over the top of it and just iron it on again. And it looks like I'm rushing because I have this sped up, but I'm really kind of taking my time. So now that is all adhered, and so I am just going to once again just kind of mark things out just to make sure that I cut things in the right spot, because in this process, again, you don't want to cut it down so much where you won't have enough of the material to go inside of the book. So you'll see what I'm saying. Now I'm using my rotary cutter again I attempted to use my rotary cutter to cut this material, but I was having kind of a hard time doing it. What you can do when you're cutting fabric is you can put another piece of paper on top, and sometimes that will help and sometimes it won't. I was able to cut most of it this way, but then I noticed that the width of the book page basically was too long, and so I needed to use another method to cut. See, it cut pretty nicely. So again, you don't need any cutting gadgets or anything. You just use your scissors. So here I just took my cutting mat out and my rotary cutter, and I just cut those edges off. It cuts pretty quick. It's a pretty quick cut doing it that way. Now, I could have saved myself tons of time by measuring, but oh no, Lizzie doesn't want to measure. So I just kept putting it back on the book and just cutting slivers here and slivers there to make sure it was cut down to the length that I wanted to. And of course, if you do it this way as well, you won't run the risk of cutting too much off at one time. So I was okay with this, and I had plenty of time. I wasn't in any rush when I made this, and so this kind of worked out for me. Baby scissors to the rescue. Those are actually my precision Cricut scissors. All right, so now I am going to sew around the edges just like I did with the book cloth that I made for the spine. And this is going to help it to not fray and to look pretty as well. This is the first time I actually recorded me sewing things, because I've been on a sewing kick lately. So I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you are. The sewing machine that I'm using is the Brothers LX3125. I don't think they sell it anymore. It is a very, very simple sewing machine. It doesn't have a lot of stitches on it. I wish I had one that had a lot of stitches on it, but this one, it works for me, and it was pretty inexpensive to get. So I'm just gonna cut that thread off now. And now I have my book cover to go in the inside. Now I am not going to go any further in this video, so just go to the next video in the series, and the next thing we're going to do is start working on the signatures, and then we'll start putting everything together after that. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Please leave a comment and let me know if you have any suggestions or any questions for me that I can answer. And if Again, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button so that you'll be notified when more videos like this one come out. So with that, I'm going to say love, peace, and hair grease from your sweet lotus blossom and lovable Lizzie. Have a fantabulous day and enjoy life.